just like everyone else to go to Europe. Like everyone wants to go to Aviano or Spangdahlem, so Italy or Germany. My class rolled dice. There's really no great way to do it, so we rolled dice, and I forget if it was rolled the lowest numbers or what. Got to pick first, and Misawa was, I don't know, maybe like 5th on my list. And we had like three of us went to Misawa, so there were quite a few. And that's where I ended up. And I was excited to live overseas. I was excited to go to any base overseas, but Europe was definitely my first choice.
Yeah, well, that's another transition too, because now Block 50, right? Now you're even more learning more systems and a new mission.
Yeah.
What do you think about transitioning and going to your first combat support?
It was tough, and I talk about that quite a bit now. It's part of the story that I tell of what I'm doing now, but the B course, it was noticeable, but I did find I probably was middle of the pack in my class. And then, but you had your peers, right? So you're not the only one going through that program. There's like 18 of us all doing the same thing, so you have people that are studying together and lean on, and then you get to the CAF, your first squadron, and I was the only new lieutenant. Like everyone else was quite a bit ahead of me, and the last person that did PCS had been there several months at that point. And so people say they're there to help if you have any questions, but everyone's so busy that you find yourself alone a lot of the time in the vault trying to study. And when you first dive into all those publications, it's like alphabet soup. And so you're having to spend time just looking up what the acronyms mean to even have context to be able to read the documents. So it definitely piled up there, and that was the first point where I was like, ooh, I might have stepped into something that I'm actually not good enough to do. And now I'm kind of stuck here because they're forcing to spend a whole lot of money to train me. And also this has been the shiny penny that I was running towards for 5 years at that point that I wanted so bad. And then I got there, and it was like I suddenly definitely was like, I'm not going to be here. I'm an imposter. Everyone else is smarter than me, better than me. And it was a reality check, I think, because I had always just been good at things, and I was a high achiever, and so this was the first time that I really got pushed back, and putting in the work to study still didn't feel like it was enough.
Did you feel like, I mean, because you talked about that on Instagram, Facebook, about it last week. Is that the first time you started experiencing that, or was it something that you had dealt with even before, just at a smaller level? Was it just something that you did before?
The very first time I doubted if I was good enough to go through the program was a very short period at the start of IFS, when it was just like fire hose. That's like the first week of the program. I was up till midnight studying, knowing I had to wake up at 5 a.m. and feeling like I wasn't making any traction. But that was very short-lived. And so by the end of that program, I felt like I was fine. Pilot training, honestly, I was pretty comfortable the whole time. And IFF, it was more of a cultural thing, less of a flying thing. So getting to my first combat squadron was the first time where I hit that block and it just stayed there for an extended period of time. Because that was a seed squadron as well, so your suppression of enemy air defenses, for everyone that doesn't know, but you are learning all of the enemy's surface air missile systems, and it's complicated. There is so much to know.
Well, so taking a step back, as somebody in the chat just said, I forgot to ask you, first flight in the F-16 light in the afterburner, which is the greatest feeling in the world?
It's incredible, yeah. You kind of feel like you should know what to expect when you fly the T-38, but it's way better.
Did it bring you back to when you were looking at the F-15s taking off? You were like, yeah, I made the right choice.
Yeah, for sure. I loved the jet. It was challenging, but it was, like I said, it wasn't the flying. It was all of the other things piled on top of the flying.
So, as a young lieutenant now, at your CAF squadron, how did you end up coping with it? Like, how did you overcome it? Did you have techniques? Did you go and spend a whole bunch of time at the gym and work out the frustration, or did you have any way to kind of cope with it?
I mean, I bring that up up. I definitely worked out a lot, which helped. But I would say I didn't cope with it super well. Like if I could go back, I would have done a lot of things differently. I think I really felt like I had to prove myself, and some of that was there were 2 women, myself and one other, in a squadron of 40-something pilots, and just feeling like you were under a microscope and you had to do everything better than anyone else, and you couldn't show weakness. And that might have worked fine if I just rolled in there and crushed it and understood everything right away, but I didn't. But I was in a spot where I did not want to admit that, and I didn't want to put myself out there at all. And so there were a lot of times I should have found a mentor and been like, hey, I'm struggling, I need help, or asked questions, and I wouldn't because I didn't want people to know. And that really held me back. I could have been a much better pilot that first assignment than I was. I wasn't terrible, but I was just okay. And I think looking back, regret's not the right word because I learned a lot from it, but I don't think I performed up to the level that I want to perform up to at that first assignment. And that was pretty much the entire 3 years that I was there. So it took a while. It was not until my next move to my next squadron that I was like, all right, enough of this. And I kind of consciously made a shift in how I was seeing things.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So you ended up going to a very experienced squadron, right? The composite squadron, essentially active duty in Portugal. How did you choose that assignment, or was it chosen for you? What brought you to Portugal?
I did put that as my first choice on my list of assignments, but that can go anyway. You can be your last choice. You just never know. It's with the Air Force. They had one spot for an experienced F-16 pilot that was a captain, the flight commander there for the active duty pilots, with the majority of the squadron being, like you said, experienced reservists. Kind of took a shot in the dark and put that as my very first choice. I was I was super burned out coming off of Misawa, just with all the internal struggle stuff I was going with and the ops tempo there, and being the chief of scheduling, which is like the worst job ever. Just moving all the pucks around the board. And I could have handled it better. It was partially self-induced, but I was just like grasping for a chance to come up for air coming off of that assignment, and I knew TFI would give me that. And so that's why I put it first, even over going to Italy or Germany at that point. And I got it, and it was the perfect time for that assignment to come along.
Yeah, so just on more fun flying, how'd you like Block 30 versus the Block 50?
It was a downgrade, obviously, somewhat, but I showed up in the middle of a spin-up to go to Afghanistan. So we were doing CAS, and that jet is very good at that, and it has the center display, and it has all these cool avionics that are made for doing close air support. And we trained really hard to get super proficient at that specific mission, and it was so nice to be good at that and feel like you had your arms around it finally. So I did miss the performance as much as I would have. I think if we hadn't been in that phase in the squadron when I showed up.
So were you the only female fighter pilot when you showed up at Carswell as well?
Yeah, I was actually the first one that's ever been in that squadron, and we still haven't had one since. So, which you think would be a thing, especially rolling in with a bunch of women who are all a couple of generations removed from where I was at. A lot of them they've been in for close to 20 years, and I'm still in. But that squadron was amazing. They clearly, as reservists, and they hire people, they know they're not just there for a 3-year assignment, they're there for 10 years, for 15 years, so they pick personalities that are going to fit well. And they had built this incredible squadron of almost like a family, and the experience level was incredible. So there were, I think, I don't know, 10 weapons school graduates or something in one squadron, and some of them had deployed to Afghanistan 6 times, 8 times. Like they're like, you kind of remove the egos I think that came with young fighter pilots where you felt like you had to prove yourself, and they were all just like, yeah, we don't need to show off, like, we know our shit, and like we're comfortable with it, we're confident, but we're not arrogant. And that atmosphere was so refreshing, and I feel like they all just brought me in with open arms, and they really mentored me going into my first deployment, and it was the perfect atmosphere to step into coming off of my first assignment and kind of what I struggled with there.
Yeah. So talk to me about your first deployment. How was that? Coming off the ops tempo, the active duty side, now you're pulling a bunch of really experienced reserves.
It was awesome. I wish I got to deploy longer and again with them. It was just a tight-knit group, and you always had your people you work out with, and you always had your people you go to chow with, and you always had your women you were flying with. And even when we were blended with the MACOs, because that's the sister squadron of the SPAD, so I got by Miami Homestead. Oh, I've never met a lot of them, but after a few weeks, everyone just got along really well. There was very limited personality conflicts or drama, and it was a really cool environment because all of the day-to-day stresses are kind of removed, and you're like, I can work out every day. I can go do that for a mission and do some really cool stuff, and then I can eat ice cream every day because I worked out every day. Like, I really like being deployed.
Well, so we talked about the imposter stuff. Was that all alleviated at this point? Now that you're kind of more comfortable and you feel more like you fit in there and more at home?
I think I got better at managing it, where I would still do the thing even if I was scared. Where before I had kind of just been like paralyzed by worrying about failing, so I wouldn't volunteer for things. I wouldn't put myself out there. Once I got to the SPADs, I was not happy with where I was at, and I'm kind of a perfectionist and an overachiever just by nature, and so I wanted to fix it. And so I made a conscious decision that I would start doing all of these things that I had wanted to do, but that were kind of uncomfortable and a little bit scary. And that started with my hobbies and definitely trickled into my professional life with deploying for the first time. I volunteered to go to Poland and instruct there, which was amazing. And that's a whole, we're going out of order slightly, but that was after
That's
I
fine.
deployed.
That's fine.
Yeah.
What did you instruct? Like, did you go fly on the back seat of MiG-29s? Did you go do any stuff like
No,
that?
in their F-16s.
Oh, okay. Did you get to fight the MiG-29 at all?
Unfortunately, no. That was like, I was asking the whole time I was there, I was like, guys, like, I know you think this isn't a big deal, but half their squadron was deployed. They had a lot of going on at the time, so I got to do like plug upgrades and put people through like their mission qualification training and their flight lead upgrades. So I was flying with guys that had gone through Tucson, so they had gone through the American Corps, but now they're back in their home country, and it was super cool. But I kind of see that decision to put my name in to go do that was a pretty pivotal moment, because that was summer of 2017. I had been with the SPADs for about a year and a half. I had deployed with them the summer before, and I was doing all these things to really push my limits outside my comfort zone and like try to get rid of that little voice of self-doubt that I'd really been dealing with in the Sawa. And I had been doing that really successfully, and I was so happy. I felt like I was just thriving. And this email came out from the reserves to other reserve pilots asking for instructors to go to Poland for the summer. I was active duty. The only requirement was that you were an IP instructor, and I had just finished my upgrade 3 days before that email came out. So I am like the greenest instructor possible. And my initial reaction was like, this sounds super cool. They have like these cool jets with formal fuel tanks and a drone chute. And I've never been to Poland. I would love to travel there. I want to live there for the summer. And then I was like, well, am I really qualified to do this? I'm brand new. Also, they don't have any pilots, like how's that going to go over? Are they going to listen to me? So all those doubts, right? And I recognized that there was time when I was like, screw that. And I went to my boss and I was like, can I apply for this? Even though I'm not going to be like, oh, let's check. I expected to go into the bar that day and have all the reservists be like, did you guys see that awesome opportunity to like Poland? And I like walk in there and I'm like, did you guys see that awesome opportunity? And they're all like, the kids, we have some education, the airlines. And I'm like, yeah, I'll go. So I went and it was hard, but it was awesome.
Yeah. Is that the Warhawks? Is that Poland Warhawks? I think they have a YouTube channel. There's some Viper Squadron. Yeah, there's some Viper Squadron. I always see them posting different videos. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like the Tigers.
Yeah. No, that's a great experience. And so did you come back and like, hey guys, guess what I did this summer? Was it pretty? Did you bring a lot back to the squadron after doing that?
I think they were all really interested in how it went, and I think it made me more confident as an instructor, as pretty much any flight does when you just finished the upgrade, as you really don't know what you're doing yet. But it was just a super memorable experience, and I made a lot of great friends with those other people that were around my same age that had gone through Tucson, and they were just so welcoming. It was cool, and it was amazing to live in Poland, and I traveled a bunch while I was there on the weekends, and it was a cool experience.
So from there, did you start thinking, like, what made you decide, hey, next thing I'm going to do is be a Thunderbird?
So my time at Fort Worth was coming to an end, and I got a follow-on to Hollywood to go be a B-Course instructor, which wasn't my first choice of locations, but I thought I would like teaching there, and it wasn't that big a deal. So I had already, orders were in the works, I was scheduling my household goods, all of that stuff, and I saw an email from the Thunderbirds that it was like, hey, last chance to apply, we've already sent out your email that you probably never opened or automatically deleted, and here's like, if you want to apply to be on the team, this is the last chance, and the packages were due like the following week. It was like 5 days later, and for whatever reason, as I'm scrolling through my email working on out processing, I see that and I open it and I scroll down and read through the requirements, and I met all of them, and I was like, huh, I mean, Holland would be cool, but I'm in a great spot in my career to apply for this. And honestly, people had asked me if I wanted to apply for the Thunderbirds several times throughout my career, and I had always said, I haven't really thought about it. And that's because it interested me, but I didn't think I was a good enough pilot to be on the team. Like, that was my honest assessment, was I did not have a good idea of what the training was actually like, what the flying was actually like. And so I was like, I'm not that good at flying formation. I'm not good enough to be on the team. And again, all that kind of intentional mindset shifting stuff I did over those couple of years with the SPADs paid off, because in that moment I was like, oh, I meet all these requirements. This sounds fun. Why not try to apply? And I went to my boss, and he was amazing, because I was like, boss, I know I'm supposed to PCS here in like 2 months to Holloman, but what do you think about this? And he was like, I think you'd be great for that job. Like, let's do it. What do we have to make happen? And so we got letters of recommendations from generals and pulled all my records and all that stuff in like 3 days, and got the package in on the last day, and I ended up getting hired.
Is that a super squirrel secret interview process, or is that something that you talk about now?
No, I can talk about it for sure. It's pretty lengthy and intense. The package that I submitted was 40-something pages. It's all your performance reports, all your check rides, your PT tests, a photo, all the things, and a statement of why you want to be on the team. And then they review that stuff for any big red flags, like hooked check rides or failed PT tests or that kind of thing. They kind of eliminate those people generally. And then I think like 30 people applied. They went through the records and picked 12 of us to come out to be semifinalists. So we actually came out on the road, went to an air show with the current team, met everyone, got to shadow everything, the brief, the debrief, be at show center, kind of see what the operations tempo is like at an air show. and then we did interviews with the commander and the DO, and I think we interviewed with the wing commander, which was General Levitt, a 1-star at the time, and that was the first round. And a lot of it is them kind of just assessing your personality and how you're going to fit in with other personalities, because it's such a small group. Being on the road over 200 days a year, you're in a pressure cooker, and the personalities have to get along. Like, having a huge personality conflict and a bunch of drama is the most stressful thing, way more than when we're flying. So that's a huge part of it. So 12 of us, and then maybe a month or two later, we find out who made the finalists. So they brought 6 of us back out to do that all again, shadow for another weekend. And then we do a panel interview where all 12 of the current officers are at a table, and you sit at the head of the table, and they all go around and ask you questions, which is fairly stressful. Yeah, it was funny once I was on the team doing the interviews, so like watch how people handle that in different ways. And then you leave and you wait again, and finally get a phone call to tell you
any flying? Yeah, is there any flying at all?
There wasn't, but last year we brought it back for the first time. In a really long time, we decided to add the flying interview back in, and so now the applicants go through those show weekends, and then they come out to Nellis for a week, and the team schedules it when they have a weekend where they don't have a show, so they can come out the whole week, and they actually put them in the front seat of a D model, and they go through a very specific profile of trying to fly a loop and a roll and do all the Thunderbird comms. There's a lot of weird stuff the team does that you don't want to do. Yeah, and no one's good at it at that point. It's really just a chance to see how much they were weird and how they react when they're overwhelmed.
Yeah. So you got the, sorry I interrupted you, but you got the call, and I mean, what was that like?
I was the SOF at the time, so supervisor of flying, for those that don't know, and my shift had just started, so I was actually out in the truck with the light on the top, driving the runway, and I was off the runway, luckily. I was driving across the ramp over to the gate that like went back out onto the street, and my phone started ringing, and I saw that it was the Thunderbird had set, because I had a number in my phone, and I just pulled over on the side of the ramp and put the flashers on, and I answered it. And I don't even, they all just started yelling congratulations. So I knew immediately that I had made the team.
Awesome. So what's the transition like to becoming a Thunderbird?
There's a lot that goes into it. The obvious stuff of moving to the Vegas and Ellis, and the normal stuff you do when you go to a new squadron. Then there's a lot of other stuff though, like public affairs training, and getting put on camera, and doing interviews, and getting fit for a very fitted, very tight blue suit, and getting that tailored over and over and over until it fits enough so you can sit down, but so it's not loose at all. The very fine line between the two. And then there's a whole lot of Thunderbird isms, like very specific things that the team does with radio calls, with just how things are done in the squadron. So there's a lot of academics you have to go through. And then you start flying, and when I went through, I'm trying to think, initially it was just me and the lead solo that was on his way out of the squadron, going out as a 2-ship to fly solo maneuvers, to get exposure to, all right, flip upside down and see how that goes for you. You think it's really simple? No, everyone rolls upside down and then they push too much and they end up climbing, pulling like -2 to 3 Gs, and everything in the cockpit just explodes. All your pens leave your pocket. So that takes a lot of practice. Just something as simple as flopping inverted at 10,000 feet cruising through the airspace. You have to do it over and over and over before you get what you see at 100 feet for a show. And then there are other flights where you go out with Thunderbird 1 on his wing and flying off the source, because I flew, you have 1, you have 2, and then I flew off the 2, so I was twice removed. But you start flying off the source because it's much easier than flying at the end of the whip, doing a loop and a roll, and you're far away and you're overcorrecting, and especially the roll, and you just do it over and over and over until you get a little bit better each day. And 4 months and 100+ flights later, you have your first air show.
Oh my God. So was this something that was an easy transition for you, or was it something that, you were like what was the most difficult part and what was kind of the easiest part?
The flying was harder than I thought it would be, but everyone experiences that the same, and it was very obvious that everyone was going through that learning curve, and it was also very exciting. The hardest thing was definitely the roll for me when we came all 6 together, and I was on the wing of number 2, who's on the wing of number 1, and I'm on the left side, and we're rolling left. So that maneuver, being on the inside of the roll, away from the axis so far, took me like half of the first show season to get anywhere close to staying in, which is very frustrating. And then solo maneuvers, you'd think those would be pretty easy, because it's just one jet that I've already been flying for 10 years or 9 years at the point I joined the squadron. But it's just such different flying. Like in the F-16 Airbornes, you're like never touching the rudder. Like
Right.
you don't use your feet at all. Flying the solo profile, I was doing a knife edge with full rudder deflection to keep me from diving towards the ground, or I'm slipping the jet to kill energy as I'm doing a rejoin with 100 knots of closure at 1,000 feet. And it was just, you're operating on the edge the entire time. So it takes a lot of time to get to that point.
Yeah. Was it something, I watched a video of the Blue Angels, they chair fly every brief. Is that something you guys would do as well before every show? And was it that creepy?
Not the extent that they do. This is going to get back to them, because they're our friends. We actually do a lot of stuff with them. Like, we all know each other. But the first time you sit in on a Blue Angels brief and you see the chair flying portion, people who have already been there are like, hey, just a heads up, this is going to happen. You cannot burst out laughing in the middle of the brief. You need to keep it together. Do not look at each other. Do not make eye contact with your friends, because the whole thing's so awkward. And so you're just sitting there and you're like, this is weird. You just get, I'm sure that we did some weird stuff too, I'm sure, but it just becomes so normal to you that you don't think it's weird. The chair flying thing, we would talk through the maneuvers in the order with a map of the airspace, but everyone has their eyes open. You're kind of just drawing the lines with a pen. They take it to the extreme, which it works for them. It's fine, but yeah, it can be uncomfortable the first time you sit in on a brief.
Well, so I guess that to me it brings up another question. This whole time, are you just air show centric, or would you guys go out and do CT or continuation training, BFM? Would you do anything other than fingertip and the demos and stuff, or was it just we have one mission and this is all we do, so nothing else?
No, and there's 3 show types, right? Depending on the weather, there's the high show, the low show, and the flat show. So much goes into not just being really good at the maneuvers, but also being really good at the timing between the solos and the timing between the solos and the diamond, and like deconfliction behind the line and the narration